So with the stimulus negotiations going on once again, I thought it might not be a bad idea to remind people about how the last part of it went. So look, we've talked about the inadequacy of the direct checks that were made, but remember, a lot of that program in that first government bill was about aid to small businesses, making sure that they sort of prop up some parts of the economy. And when it was being discussed, it was talked about in a particular way, and that was that this is gonna be aid for small business. Government, man, loves talking about how it's gonna help out small business. Well, now we've had more than 6 months of the data coming in for how the money was actually divvied up. And there's a great analysis of it from the Center for Public Integrity that shows, hey, what do you know? It didn't really work out that way. So apparently most PPP loans went to businesses and communities that already had more access to resources. Loans didn't reach a greater share of businesses in the lowest income communities, where median household income is about $40,000 or less, and recessions hit the hardest. Instead, the numbers fell just shy of their share of small employers in the US. Rural areas did only slightly better. The PPP reached them in proportion to their share of small employers. So the idea was supposed to be that they were going to find areas that desperately needed help. They were gonna find smaller businesses that desperately needed help, and the bulk of the funding was going to go to them. But no, sort of best case scenario, these businesses did about as well as you would expect based on their share of the population. And when you break it down by the median household income, there appears to have been virtually no benefit given in the distribution of the funds to areas that needed the aid most. So this is gonna be the first of several studies we talk about on the show today that are hardly shocking to people who are familiar with American politics. But it's important that we know this wasn't just a hypothesis when the money was originally being allocated. The belief that it would go to people who didn't necessarily need it as much. The data is actually showing that now.
These are the parts of the stories that you generally don't get, which is again obviously why we're doing it, because you'll hear as recently as Sunday on Fox News Sunday, Joe Manchin talking about how the compromise deal will take care of everything. And of course, you have to bring up small businesses like every other Republican does, just like Joe Manchin, who was a wannabe Republican. You just keep saying, we're here to help small businesses. Small businesses need our assistance. Can you believe small businesses? Hey, you know, sometimes you only have like 10 employees. We need to help small businesses. And if you say it over and over and over again, and you get these people who think you're a supporter of small businesses, then this part happens. The secondary reality part of the distribution of the funds happen, or the people who cut line, as we saw from the first round. We just stop talking about it and go back to small businesses, small businesses, small businesses. If you hear them talk about small businesses, look into what they're actually doing, because there's a pretty good chance they're screwing over small businesses for the benefit of their buddies who gave them money to make sure that they're in the front of the line.
Yeah, and so I want to jump in a little bit more information, including that this isn't just a thing that when you break it down by like median income, like purely, you break it down along other demographic trends. You see also some of the stated goals of the program, the PPP program, were not actually followed. So the SBA did not ask applicants for their demographic information, but a May survey by Color of Change suggested that Black and Hispanic business owners were often denied the help, and many feared that their firms would not last the year. I remember we talked about that at the time, that they were denied at a higher rate than white-owned businesses. More information now breaking down into particular lenders. So Bank of America, which was the top PPP lender by number of loans that were given, sent half to the nation's highest income zip codes, which well above those areas' shares of small employers, oddly enough. Just 8% of its loans went to the lowest income communities, well below their share. Wells Fargo, which was the fourth largest lender by number of loans, sent 8% too to the lowest income zip codes. Did they have like a phone call that like they figured out that's what they're gonna do? They sent 2% to rural areas. Yeah. Anyway, and look, you can go and you can get the information. It's available at Center for Public Integrity. They also found that based on the size of the firm, the percentage of requests that were actually approved before the funds ran out was very different based on your size. For those who were very large corporations who were asking, by the way, for more money, the number that were processed was much higher. Smaller companies that were literally asking for far less money had a much lower chance of actually even getting a confirmation or denial during the program. And so what this leaves us, especially after the funds run out, is God only knows how many of those businesses did end up losing out. And in no small part due to the fact that the money ran out. And we can see they gave a bunch of it to people that didn't need it. And by the way, there's been some good coverage of things like, was it who's the big mega church guy who his church got some loans? Yeah, I don't really.
For some reason, when I start with the
Oscorp, I think it is.
No, because usually it's different.
Is it Osborne? Anyway, but yeah, like I saw news coverage of that, which is totally true, and that money shouldn't have gone there. And there was like Jared Kushner and Trump's family and everything, and certainly those are egregious. But while this is less sexy, this is where the bulk of them, like you can see that the bulk of the money was given in incredibly inequitable ways. Joel Osteen. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So and it's good that was news. I'm glad that people are focusing on that. But it wasn't a thing of just a couple of abuses. This was whether we can prove yet that it was by design, and for that we would really need, like the communications of the people who were divvying up the money. And a lot of it isn't just the government; it's also these banks. Like you can see it in the numbers. So
I can only speculate how the breakdown and distribution of this works, but as you point out, these lower income zip codes, we know there's geographical divisions among race lines and income lines. So it's just kind of natural. It's why the way the nation is so segregated based on those types of things. It's a natural way to disenfranchise people from anything from voting to stuff like this. So you can support your small businesses, but the small businesses in certain communities, which overall certain communities we don't care about when it comes to anything from schools to what is it they call food deserts? When there's actually no good actual grocery stores available for certain folks in certain communities. All those things just are all encompassing with things like this. So it can be inaccurate to say they plan specifically, Bank of America and all them plan specifically, not just make sure money goes to certain folks. But if you're already in this group or in this section of the country that's ignored, you're automatically gonna be ignored when something like this happens with it. You've been ignored on 25 other things that the government usually helps more affluent communities with. So it goes with the territory. It's why Black and Latino folks, especially women, end up getting when they even go for healthcare, when they go to hospitals and doctor care, they don't pay attention to what they need, their pain, they think that they're exaggerating it. All those things are naturally built into the system. So you can't say, oh yeah, they saw a black lady come and therefore they started discriminating against her. They kind of did because it just goes with the flow. It's why it's a systemic problem and not just an individual, each person is choosing to do it in the time that happens.
Yeah, and the damage doesn't, just go away after the pandemic. Like if some areas that desperately needed the help to be propped up while things were difficult went under, and then people lost their jobs as a result of that. Those jobs will suddenly just come back necessarily after the pandemic, and so now you had areas that were already worse off based on median income that are going to have worse outcomes after the pandemic. And again, this is why, like we were talking earlier, we were joking about the fact that our belief of what the government's mission is supposed to be. Obviously, that isn't how they actually see themselves. You could say similar things about what the mission of banks should be. And instead, you had money being given that largely was going to people who probably needed it far less.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.